Right, so welcome to Dr. Kab Society Mission, and we are on biology for now. So let's see our first chapters for biology. So this is biology. Okay, first thing we're going to talk about is talk about the life processes. Now, when we talk about the life processes, we are talking about all the steps, the processes that go on in a living thing, okay? In a living thing. Of course, if you look at things in broad terms, whole universe, okay? I would say that's a brief introduction. You remember, we said there was a Big Bang, there was an explosion. That is in the when there was nothing, okay? When there was nothing, let's assume. When there was nothing, there was a big explosion, which we call the Big Bang theory, okay? There was a big explosion, and then we had was some sort of energy generating, so some sort of energy becoming mass in the form of elements. And the first one was hydrogen atom. So these hydrogen atoms fused to form helium atoms, okay? And of course, we propose that these ones kept fusing to generate the various 100 and so elements that we have in our universe, okay? Right, so this is how we were thinking things happening. And of course, at a point in time, we began to have, so this constitutes the, let's say, the non-living part of the universe, non-living. Now, to bring the living part of the universe into the picture, or to look at living things, how living things also came into the picture, is assumed maybe somewhere in the sea or in the water body, we had some of these elements, atoms coming together, okay, to form the various compounds, okay, and among them was the bipolar compound, like what we call like maybe one with a long chain, kind of carbon-carbon chain, and then the head will be a charged moiety, okay? So this charge, let's say this charge is negative, and this one is neutral, okay? So this is the polar, it's a polar part, okay? It's polar, bipolar. This is charge, this part is charged, this part is charged. Now we had these ones coming together, okay? When they come together, they will form, when you have these bipolar units coming together, okay, they form something like, they come into the form of a circle, what we call them, the micelle, okay? Right. So it is assumed. So these are all theories, okay? We do not have the means to prove them. When I say theory, it means something that we are proposing might have happened, okay? Sometimes with little backing experience somehow, okay? But once it becomes law, then it means we have concrete evidence to prove that, or it has lived the test of time. So it now becomes law. But this, at this point, this is all theory because we've not proven it beyond with facts that will not be disputed in any form. Okay, so still these are the proposals. So elements coming together to form compounds. These compounds are both bipolar. Because they are bipolar, the charged part will interact, and then the uncharged part will also interact. Okay, so this is more or less like a surfactant or the bipolar nature of the lipids that we have in the cell membrane of living things. Okay, right. So this something like this happened, and then it's proposed that the element of life, the most crucial or the most important one being DNA, okay, or RNA. Okay, so it's proposed that this had also been formed in the sea or in the water collection, and of course this has the ability to capture this DNA. And then maybe we will have something like that. This can also be double layered, okay? Depending on how the orientation is, so we have something like this. That is the double layer, okay? And then this DNA was captured. Of course, once it's captured, then it's becoming more or less like a cell. It's becoming more or less like a cell. So maybe in the initial phase, when it was captured, it looked more or less like an eukaryotic, eukaryotic kind of particle. Eukaryotic means without nucleus, and this is where viruses will fall, okay? And then beyond that, it became to prokaryotic, okay? That means these ones have nuclear material. They have nuclear material. So this one, not A means without true nucleus, okay? No true nucleus, okay? Prokaryotic, it's now getting closer to a true nucleus, but it's not yet a true nucleus. So this one, there are nuclear. There are what? Nuclear material. But no nuclear what? Membrane. No nuclear membrane. Okay? Then this also progressed to give us the true cell with what? Nuclear material with a nuclear membrane. So that will be the eukaryotes, okay? U means true, okay? Eukaryote. Karyo is referring to the nucleus, okay? Eukaryotes or eukaryotic, okay? So a progression something like this is proposed somehow, okay, to have evolved into the various kind of living things that we have. So we had a non-living part coming together to form the living part, starting with the micelle to some sort of eukaryotic particle. So these are also called particles, okay? They are not living, okay? Then prokaryotic now becoming living. These can live on their own because they have a component that can make them go through the life processes, okay? Now this is also well organized, can go through the life processes. Okay, so that's it. So these ones can usually single cell or unicellular. You say unicellular. Okay, or a bunch of them together. Then you go to the eukaryotic, you can have the unicellular, you can have the multicellular, then you have a lot of them coming together as this organism system. You have a system kind of organism coming together into the picture. So this is a brief narration of how things go. Now we're going to take the first chapter of life processes and we'll see how things we can put things together to get a very good picture. So you see that the eukaryotic virus, it can't reproduce on its own. Okay, it will need a living thing. It definitely needs a living thing. Okay, to be able to reproduce, to be able to give birth. Let me put it in there. To be able to produce its own kind. Okay, it will need another living cell. The reason is it only has either DNA or RNA in it. Okay, so it doesn't have the machinery to sort of, let's say, multiply this one, okay, to give you two cells, multiply this, and then also to produce the cell wall and all of that. So it means it needs assistance. It needs assistance. That is the virus. Okay, at this point, I'll put it that way. It needs assistance. Okay, here they have the nuclear material, but there's no no nuclear membrane. But they have a cell wall with a membrane, and then they have some architecture. They have some basic components that can assist them to carry out the life processes. Okay, so they can live on their own, or they can reproduce on their own. Okay, they will not need assistance. Okay, now this one is the advanced forms. Of course, they can. Okay, so if you look at each of them, you can look at it from one cell to two cells, or two or three, four cells, and then to a lot of cells coming together. If you have only one cell, that means that one cell should be able to do all the processes, the life processes. So it means it should be well organized such that it can carry out almost all the life processes. If you have multiple cells, then some of them will specialize or become more good in doing a particular life process. So that will come in as the number of cells increases. Okay? Yeah. Right. So that is at this level, that's what we have. Now let's move on to the life processes. Right, so now let's look at the life processes. So these are the life processes, okay? Life processes, okay? So we have how many of them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we are giving this acronym. Acronym means short words to let you remember fast. Okay, so we say Mr. Rain. Mr. Rain, of course, M for movement, R for respiration, another R for reproduction, E for excretion, I for irritability, J for growth, and then N for nutrition. Right. So now let's take them one after the other and then talk briefly about them. Now when we get to classification, we will look at how each of them work. Okay. So when you talk about nutrition, of course, then we are looking at how the organism is able to get its food. Okay. And then how it's able to deal with getting food for its other life processes. Okay. Either acquiring it, how it's able to handle after acquiring it, how it's able to convert it to other forms of what we call compounds, and then energy, so that it derives energy for its other life processes. Okay, so that will be under nutrition. Okay, so this is about food, how it's able to get its food, process it to generate energy in it. So all the processes involving the food, okay, will fall under nutrition. Now, when you talk about respiration, okay, so respiration, we are looking at respiration. So first of all, we can have the two, which one will be the you taking, let's say if we are using human beings, we are taking air from the surroundings. Okay, so that kind of external, okay, that is an external kind of acquiring air. So respiration is to do with you getting oxygen or air, not all the time oxygen, it might sometimes be other things. Okay, air, or any form of gas, okay, to produce energy. Okay, right. So looking at this, some may not be part of oxygen, or let's say minus oxygen. Okay, something like this. So respiration will mean, of course, with reference to human beings, how we're able to get oxygen into our body, and then our body is able to make use of the oxygen that will fall under respiration. Okay, so we have external, that is how we're able to get the air in, and then internal is how the body cells, when it gets into the body, how the body is able to process it, so that we can get energy from it. Okay, so your external will involve what? You taking air and breathing it out. Okay, taking air and breathing it out is also, and breathing the air out is ventilation. Okay, then beyond that, the air enters the bloodstream. Okay, get to the cells or the tissues. Okay, now at the tissue level, there will be some kind of cellular respiration. Okay, at that point, the oxygen must be taken into the cell, and then there will be some sort of another form of respiration where the oxygen will be combined with food components to generate energy. Okay, these are all falling under cellular respiration. All right, so that is one aspect of respiration that we look at. Okay, but the other thing I want to mention is sometimes respiration, certain respiration will need oxygen. Other kind of respiration will not need oxygen, but will be done without oxygen. Those that will require oxygen will be aerobic respiration. Those that do not require oxygen will be an. An means without. Anaerobic. Okay, anaerobic respiration. Okay, so fermentation and all those things will fall under, they are not using oxygen, so they'll fall under anaerobic. Those that will be using oxygen will be aerobic. Okay, right. So that is so all these are falling under the cellular part of respiration. Okay, or the internal respiration aspect. Right. Okay, so I think at this point we'll leave it here. As we go into the various chapters, we discuss each into details. Now, these life processes we are talking about, if it is a unicellular, it can be a unicellular organism. Unicellular means one cell organism, or multicellular, or the one that is almost an organism, organism like human. Say, okay. So one cell, if you are one cell, then you should be able to carry out all these, or have some modifications to adjust for all that. Multicellular may have division of, let's say, let's put it better context, division of labor. That means some cells will be more responsible for a particular life process. Others will be so all together the whole organism is able to get all the functions going, and the whole cell will definitely have different cells specialized. You say specialized, that means going into a particular part, not doing everything together. Giving some cells, you take care of nutrition, you take care of respiration, that will be specialization, okay? That's in the whole cell. Alright, so that will be under respiration. Now let's go to excretion. Now excretion is when you have taken in a lot of things from the environment. So those things that you have taken from the environment, okay, how you are able to what? Get them out. Apart from that, it's also, that is in simple terms, or those processes that you have, the body has gone through or the cells have gone through, okay, the byproducts, the byproduct or the waste material, okay. So, and we're now talking about excretion. So, excretion. So, the waste material, okay, usually we are talking about metabolic waste. So, metabolic waste will mean metabolism is referring to the processes, chemical processes, processes in our body, okay, right. So, the chemical processes in our body, in the cells, okay, in the tissues, etc. Okay, that's what's called metabolism. So when these processes go on, usually waste products are formed. How you get rid of these waste products is excretion. I'll look at something here called what? The first point I will look at is this one. Yeah, I want to look at other terms like ejection. Ejection, this one, in this case, you are getting rid of the unwanted, okay? Unwanted part of, let's say, food that was supposed to be digested, okay? That will be ejection. So this one, E means out, is getting out of the body. But usually here is the process that, occurred, did not get into the internal part of the body. Or like to be called the metabolic process, okay? So those ones that will go through, let's say, the GIT, that will come out will be ejection, okay? But those that will go through the internal system or the cellular system or tissue level system, that will generate waste. That would have to be excreted, that would have to be gotten rid of from the body, will come under excretion, right? So some also say there are other terms like elimination and so on, but I would not want to make things complicated. At this point, excretion will be with respect to metabolic waste, okay? Your ejection is with respect to your undigested food parts that you are getting out of the body, right? So that is, now let's move on to irritability. So irritability is how the living organism is able to sort of detect changes in the environment, okay? Changes in the environment. So changes in the environment, how you are able to sense that. So some of the words that we can, how you are able to sense that, detect, okay? Detect or sense the environmental changes, okay? So that will come to irritability. Of course, when you sense them, your reaction, how you respond, your reaction, okay, to these ones, okay, these all fall under irritability. So we have under that we have if you talk about humans, for instance, we have our sense organs, okay. We have about 5 of them, the sense organs. We are looking at your eyes, your nose, your tongue, your skin, okay. Which one have you left out? And then your ear, okay, right. So basically these are the organs that you are using to detect environmental changes, okay, right. And then you take action either to move or not to move and so on to respond, okay. So these are the organs. You can have out of these organs you have the senses. So eye is for what? Sight, okay. Nose for smell, tongue for taste, skin for what? Touch, and then ear for hearing, okay. So responding, and then not all these processes. This is with respect to human beings. There are some of organisms which may not need eyes and all that, but they have other means of detecting changes in their environment, okay. For instance, we have some plants that may have some means of detecting environmental change or something touching them, they are able to close up to show that they are able to sense that something is coming in contact with them and all that. So these are the processes that we'll be looking at under irritability. We'll talk about them when we come to the various classifications, right? So the way we respond, so there will be environmental stimuli. Okay, so let's say this is the organism. Now there is a environmental stimulus. Okay, which is one stimulus. Okay, it comes in contact with it, then it's detected. So detecting these environmental stimulus, okay, is what we call irritability. So the stimulus is what is causing what is in the environment that is coming in contact with the living organism. Okay, that's the stimulus, and then your reaction to it. So that will fall under. For instance, you have another plant we call the mimosa. So the mimosa plant, of course, it's open like that. When you touch it, then it will fold up. Okay, which has a very funny name in the tree. I don't want to talk about that. Now let's. So that's mimosa for you. So the next thing is we'll move on to movement, right? Now let's go to movement. So movement, of course, this is the organism. Okay, so moving from one place to another. Okay, that's movement. Okay, or maybe you are here moving parts of your body. So when you are at the same place and then moving part of the body, that's also one movement. And then when you move from one location to another, that's usually we call a locomotion. Okay, so a complete change from one state to another position. Okay, that's motion. But the same place moving is also under movement. So these are life processes, part of the life process. Then we talk about growth. Okay, so growth. Briefly, so growth will be one. Let's say this is a cell, and then it adds on another cell, adds on another cell. This will be termed as growth. So increasing in size, so either increasing in size or increasing in number. Okay, increasing in size or number, and then sometimes changing your shape or model or function. Okay, usually increasing in size and number is the growth, but changing in function. Okay, we can look at that, or together can be looked at as a development. Okay, now there's a specific kind of thing that we say if the cell actually they all may start looking alike. Okay, but at the point they start changing to do different functions. Okay, so here they are the same. When they start changing to do different functions, then we can say they have differentiated. Another word. So these are the terms you can be differentiated. Okay, so look at that. So when they are changing to various cell forms, then that is differentiation. But when they are changing their function, or in terms of acquiring new functions, okay, adding new functions, then we are looking at development. And just size and number is actually some people refer to as the actual growth. Okay, but all these together we will put them under growth here for now. So when we start talking about the various cells, then we'll look at that. Right. So the last part, which is the reproduction, let's look at that. So all that I'm talking about, you should expect that this is a living cell, then you should be able to do these things. A living cell should be able to do these things. But not all of them are able to do all, but they are able to some degree, they are able to do most of them. Right, now let's look at reproduction. So under reproduction, we have two broad terms. We can have what we call what we are familiar with. Let's start from there: sexual reproduction. Then we can have asexual. Then we can have those that will have both sexual and asexual together. Okay. Now, sexual would mean you need a male and a female coming together. Then asexual usually is not male and female. It's the same thing, same organism trying to produce its own kind. Okay. right? So this male and female come together to form what we call the zygote, okay? That's the baby. Zy means joined, okay? X joined together, okay? The baby organism, and then it will also grow to become either a male or a female. Now we have some that will combine both sexual and asexual. Okay, so we have alternation of generation. Okay, so some living organisms at one point in their life they'll be under the sexual part, at another point they'll be under the asexual part. Okay, right. So they will be alternating generation. Right. Then we have those which are purely asexual and then purely sexual. So under asexual, usually if they are using parts of their body, we look at that as vegetative. Vegetative, using part of their body to do that. Okay. Now, so when it comes to sexual, we have two. Let me clean this now. We have either by conjugation or the sexual act itself. Okay. So here, conjugation, what happens is when the two cells come together, they become close. Then once there's another material, this one of them, their material will move into the other. Okay. Okay. So this is not through sexual intercourse. We move into the other, and then this will grow to become the zygote to the adult. Okay. So this is conjugation, right? The sexual will have the male, the female here, and then they will have sex. The male, this is the male, this is the female. The male will produce sperms, and then the female will also bring the eggs, or what we call the ova or ovum. And then the two will fertilize, okay? Fertilize to form what we call the zygote. Okay, right. So that will be under sexual. Good. Now the asexual one, you have only one person, and then by some means it will what? Let's say this is what we are interested in. This will divide into two. Okay, so you have something like this here. Now it's divided into two. So this has divided into two. Okay, so this kind of reproduction is what we call the the asexual. Okay, so it will split into two, and then you have it another cell being formed. Okay, that is where when it splits, they also become different entities, and then start giving rise to other forms, right? So let's say this is a cell, it splits into two. So you have this and that. Now these are going to make their own cell, their own life. And this is asexual, right? I think this gives a good picture. Right. Okay. So that is, and then those which will combine both this and that, they are the alternation of generation kind of living things. Okay. So this is under reproduction. But let's look at something. There's something that I want to talk about. Usually here, if this is the parent, the parent will have the nucleus of the parent has what you call the DNA or the genes. The genes in there. Okay, one is from the father, one is from the mother. Okay, so father and mother genes are there. Then it will produce sperms. Okay, some of these sperm, the sperm may be female, sperm may be, let's say, male kind of. Let me put them to. Okay, something like that. So it's going to be both father and mother together. We can say the nuclear material, the DNA. We can say it is 2N because we are letting one of them be N. So let's say this is N, this N. So here that organism has both father and mother. So we say 2N. Now when the organism forms male and female, it is only male, so it becomes N. It is only female, it becomes N. It's only male, it becomes N. Now, I'll be using this illustration to do a lot of teaching. That is why I'm bringing it here. So here you see that the parent is 2N, and then the sperm or the gamete, what we call sperm is also called gamete. Okay, the gamete, they are N. Okay, so these N will come together to form another 2N as a living thing. When it comes to the asexual, you have your 2N, the same thing will just split and then become 2n. Okay, so that is the asexual aspect. If it is n, then it's the same n that comes to n. That is the asexual aspect. Okay, so that is it. But the point is, for cells like n to be living alone, then those cells usually are the lower cells. That means either they are unicellular or multicellular. They are not the big type of cells, because if you have just this genetic material, you've not be able to live. You can't be very complex. Because for it to be very, very complex, you will need a whole complement of DNA or genes to be able to do that. All right. Okay, so I brought in some terms. As we go on, you get used to them, and then we'll be using them. So n and 2n, you should be thinking about it. So let me just look at show you some diagrams here about reproduction. So let's say this is 2n. Okay, to give n and n, sperm, they will fuse and form 2n zygote. Okay, this zygote will grow to become an adult. This adult, sometimes it is 2n, which is either female or male. Other times too, it is neutral. Other times too, it is neutral. Okay, right. Then the process, will go on again. Okay, sperm, female sperm, male sperm come together, and that will be going on. Now we can have another organism, instead of going through like that, when it is an adult like that, the adult, which is 2n here, will rather go here to become what? Produce another 2n. Okay, maybe through some spore production, or let's say whatever. This will come back. So this is just going. Other times too, the adult that is formed, or the organism here that is formed, is n rather. So this n will be here. It will go through maybe some form of production to form, let's say, spores, which is also n. So we can have 2n or n, depending on the type of organism you're looking at, and that will go. Okay, so I'm just illustrating. This is the asexual part. This is the sexual part. Okay, so this asexual part, the sexual part. Just an illustration. You can have an organism which can have both. Okay, you can have an organism which will be solely this. You can have another organism which is solely that. Okay, so that's what you can have. So you can have asexual alone. You can have what? Sexual and asexual. And then we can have what? Sexual alone. Okay, so think about them. Now, as you think about them in the n is representing, like I said, this is the cell, this is the cell, this is the nucleus. The nucleus will contain genetic material. The genetic material, we call them DNA. Okay, right? So this DNA are what you call the genes. They are the genes from, so let's say this is from your father, this is from your mother. Okay, so genes that you have gotten from your mother and father. Okay, they are inside your nucleus. Okay, they will be able to detect, or they will lead in production of proteins, and the proteins that will be produced will make you look like your father or mother. Okay, so that is how it's. Now if you look at it in proper terms, the genes that we are talking about, inside the cell, we have what we call, let me put it this way, this is the actual chronology. The bigger genes, or the bigger genetic material, okay, we'll say chromosome. Okay, we call that chromosomes. Okay, in humans, let's use humans as an example. In humans, we have 23 pairs. Okay, so total is what? 46. Okay, so these are the chromosomes. Now these chromosomes are made up of they are made up of what we call the let's say genes. Okay, so let me put it this way. If let's say this is a chromosome, so let's say this is chromosome. Now this is a chromosome itself. Okay, this is a chromosome. Okay, this is chromosome. Let's say one of the chromosomes. Let's say chromosome chromosome 1, okay, for the human, okay, this chromosome. It can be in pairs. I mean, it may have duplicated. It may be duplicated or not, depending on the stage at which the cell is, okay. Right. If it is duplicated, then one of them becomes chromatic, okay, and then they are joined together at the center because the centromere. We'll come to meiosis and the mitosis, that is cell division. So, but I don't want to go into details now. This is the beginning. So let's say they are joined together and we have two parts of this joined together. Now if you take one part, this alone can also become chromosome, this alone can also become chromosome. And the two together we are calling at this point chromosome. That's it. Now this chromosome is made up of small parts we call genes. Okay. Now these genes are more or less, in true sense, we also call them the alleles. Okay. So if let's say this is your mother's part, this is your father's part. Okay. Right. We call these genes alleles. Okay. These alleles, if you have one of them on the female,